Good morning, Chair.
Good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Christian. Good morning, Justin. Nice to have you with us.
Morning.
Morning, Commissioner.
Good morning, Commissioner. Good morning, Vice Chair.
Today's a good day. My son gets his braces off today, and I think I'm more excited than he is, so it's a good day.
Well, congratulations, Ben. All right, well, at this time, we'll call to order the Yamhill County Board of Commissioners formal informal session for July 22nd, 2021. And Christian, would you please lead us in the pledge?
Yes, just need to unmute myself. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for that. And Justin is joining us. He's our second in command. Our fearless leader is taking some much deserved time off, and in his stead, Justin is holding down the fort for us. So anyway, thank you all for being here. And Carolina, thank you for getting us getting everything together for us, and also those last minute comments, public comments that have come in. And our executive producer is Carrie Hinton, who keeps us online. So thank you all for being here. We'll start with our calendar session. Is there anything else we need to add to our joint calendar at this time?
No, Chair. Thank you.
Okay.
Not that I'm aware of, Chair.
If there's nothing else, we'll move on to public comment. We've received public comment, and thank you all for weighing in. A lot of them were on the agenda item, which we'll be discussing in our work session. So thank you for those comments. And so we'll start out with the review on item E1 of the American Rescue Plan, the ARPA economic impact category. And I know that the immediacy of today's discussion was talking about the CTEC request for the county's portion of their funding, which would include the purchase of the building and some of the construction costs. And there was a deadline for that. So in Ken's absence, I think what we'll do is restrict any further discussion on ARPA funds until he returns, out of respect for him being part of any discussion we have about the ARPA funds. But we really just need to address the immediacy of this. We have with us Dory Vickery, the superintendent of the Sheridan schools, and I believe Abishaw's here if we need to ask her any questions. But this is a continuation from our discussion last week, and I'm going to let Commissioner Burschauer, if you would bring us up to speed, since you brought this to us in terms of immediacy.
Thank you, Chair. I think it would be helpful to hear an update from Superintendent Vickery. I know she sent some information over an email, but it would be sort of nice to get a status of where we are. And then I can kind of discuss a little bit of my concerns as well as some opportunities that we might have. So take it away, Superintendent.
Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, and good morning, Board of Commissioners. So I sent on Monday a one-pager to address your questions from last Thursday. And again, the point of making this a regional tech center for the West Valley, in conversation with the superintendents, and they are this month taking this proposal to their school boards. At this time, we don't have a financial commitment. The tech center, the Willamette Career Academy, that was through the Willamette ESD. They asked for $25,000 from every district as the startup. And then there was an arranged cost per student for participating. So that will generate some of the needed funding. If we do decide to go that route, it could be more. At the same time, those conversations are taking place. I addressed making the childcare available. And we just actually, between some grant funds and from our general fund, have hired a 0.5 administrator for early learning for the district. And that position will coordinate, and our goal is to create a early childhood career pathway in which our high school students would be available as part of their CTE program to help and provide childcare at that facility that is on Jefferson Street. And then I included a timeline and our financials. We are up against this timeline of August 16th as our closing date. And we are getting the results of the phase 2 environmental study. At this time, there is nothing alarming with that process, and we are ready to move forward. Nothing new to inform you about the 1.9 million coming from the state. That is an unknown for later this fall of when we will receive those funds. And we still have the goal that in a year, in September of 23, that we're gonna, or 22, we're gonna open up 2 to 3 pathways. I did have a meeting yesterday with some consultants that were behind the Salem-Kaiser CTEC, and I will have the district contract with them for running the capital campaign and putting together an overall advisory committee to work on program development and funding, because as I've said, it's just me, and I still have the responsibilities of being a superintendent and opening the district after the pandemic. And they realize that, and their approach was, what can we take off your plate? And so I expect to have the scope of their work today, and we'll be signing that contract and working with consultants to bring all of this together. Our estimated costs, we're at 8.3 million. That is construction, that is not staffing. There was a question about staffing and sustainability. And between the regional districts providing a per student amount, Sheridan School District will enfold some of the staffing into our general fund. And we plan to position ourselves to go for the CTE revitalization grant through the state, along with pursuing private funds. And then we have this request in for the 3 million. And then the city of Sheridan offered 400,000, and there's a conversation about possibly moving their public works department to the property. And that is still at beginnings, and they have hired a new city manager, and I am waiting for the new city manager to come on to have further conversations with city council about those funds. Commitment from industry, and that is growing as people are getting excited about this. I presented to city council Monday and to Rotary on Wednesday. Connections and people with resources are already getting the word out. And tonight, Abisha and I are having our first industry partner meeting, and we are excited to meet with these individuals, explain and cast the vision of this is what CTEC can do for our region, that we need them on board. We need to know what they need for workforce development, and thinking that 3 to 5 years out of what kind of employees can we provide them through this program. So that is the summary update, and any questions that you may have.
Well, I checked with, thank you, Superintendent, checked with Representative Gomberg's office, and they were able to tell us that that 1.9, the expectation is October. And that doesn't help you right now for the August deadline, but at least we know it's in the pipeline. The other thing is I was wondering if there was any way that you could ask for a 60-day extension on the contract so that we could have further discussions. I mean, right now, to be able to just say, you know, we're going to write a check when we haven't vetted all of the other requests or the other obligations we might have. Want to make sure you don't lose this opportunity, but maybe let them know as a promissory note, you've got 1.9 in your back pocket at some point, and then we would be able to make a further commitment, I would think, in some degree, but the deadline is really causing a problem. Commissioners, did you want to add to that?
Chair, I'm just going to be redundant and say that I would love to hear the same thing, whether the seller would consider a further extension, and exactly the same reasoning, Chair. Thank you. I want to make sure that we do a formal process and consider this in the context of other work. And I know that we have the money, and we know that the state has money coming. So I appreciate the presentation. I think this is really important, and knowing whether we can extend it would be really important to me.
I
Or
did
we,
check
we,
with,
I'm already talking about in the we, apologies.
that's okay. I did check with our realtor, Josh Kay, and in communication with the seller and their representation, and they are not interested. They are not willing to extend this deadline. We have had it under contract for 60 days. We extended it because of the phase 2 environmental study, and that is not something that they are interested in.
So then, Superintendent, this is a situation where last week you said that the seller is really committed to this vision, and I would say that it doesn't sound like it.
I would agree with that to an extent. This property has been vacant. The owner, I'm comfortable saying, I believe, is up in years. It came back to them through an unfortunate series of events. They thought they had it sold for business use. And at this point in time, they are needing their money out of the property. And I think it's been vacant for at least two years or more. Abishaw had the history on the property that I did not have, but that is my understanding. And it's a family position. It actually came into this process because of a death of the son, and it is the father now that is wanting to get this sold and get this closed out.
What if you were able, Superintendent, to say, what if we gave you something like $50,000 earnest money, a real good faith, an amount that was, let's say, non-refundable, but lets them know you're serious about this?
Mm-hmm. That is a possibility that we could pursue that. And certainly the other avenue, and in my conversation talking with Brent Nielsen and Ron Hayes yesterday, was, is there any way of an entity fronting the money? We'd have to go through a whole agreement process, like with our attorney, the district attorney. But if there is an agency that could, or organization, someone that could front the money for the $2 million, hold the property while we wait for the 1.9 and the district kicks in the remainder. That is the other possibility that will keep this project moving forward.
Kristen, would you, Commissioner Bershauer, go ahead.
Chair, I can follow up after Christian, that's fine.
Thank you. I was just wondering, Kristen, we in our discussions about what to do in the meantime, is this something that we could do in terms of, oh, that's a tough one, because fronting the money commits us. That's the only consideration, but I'm just wondering what our options are as far as getting this project to move forward. But then again, we then are on the hook for owning a building, and I would imagine that's not something we're wanting to do.
So I have not had this conversation with Ken, but I suspect that the way, Justin may know the answer to this, the way in which the ARPA funds would ultimately be dispersed would be similar to the way we distributed the CRF money through grant agreements. Is that sort of how we're seeing those amounts distributed going forward? If that's the case, then what we would be talking about is making a grant to the school district to help fund this project, not necessarily entering into any sort of purchase agreement ourselves with the seller. Does that help at all to answer your question, or am I missing the point?
No, you're not. Commissioner Bershauer, you wanted to follow up, but that's just what our options are at this point.
Thank you, Chair. So I have also been having some conversations. Anecdotally, I talked to Superintendent Zimbrick from Willamina and kind of got a little bit of her perspective on this project, as well as some private industry folks like Hampton. And I think what I'm struggling with, because I'm sensitive to my colleagues' concerns, what I'm struggling with is that CTEC Salem started with a significant private investment, and then public investment kind of came in later. This seems to be the opposite, which isn't bad. It just means that we have to do a little bit more due diligence to make sure that we're going to have that come in the future, because it's really necessary. So I was prepared to. My main concern is that you would lose this property, because there really isn't any other property around there that would be more perfect for this particular school. So that was my main concern, is how do we make sure that the property stays within the school district, and this is a possibility. Maybe it's not necessarily next year if the chips don't fall where they should, but at least it's locked down. So what I was going to propose today is to offer the 2 million, but then that last remaining million that was part of the ask is really kind of an incentive for private industry to come in. If they can raise the $2 to $3 million to get to that $8 million mark, then it might be where the county would commit that last million. But so far, the response that I've heard from Hampton and a few others is very, very positive. It just doesn't have, yes, we will commit, $500,000, or yes, we will do this yet. I have every faith and confidence in your consultant team, because I've met them and I know how passionate they are. And I think that's incredible that they're on board. So, because this isn't in their backyard necessarily. But, I am sensitive to what my colleagues are feeling as well, that this is it's a lot of money, and it's kind of before we've actually had a process. So closing date is August 16th. Did you guys put down earnest money? Was that already part of I don't remember seeing that.
Yes, we did. And I did not include that in the financials. We put down 50,000 in earnest money.
Okay. I wonder if, maybe if we have a last ditch effort to approach the owner, current owner, and say, we want to be partners on this. We just need a little bit more time. They might just say no, but maybe it's worth having, county commissioners come forward and reach out and say, are you willing to be a little bit more flexible? We might even offer, like Commissioner Sterrett said, we might even offer another 50,000 in earnest money to say, hey, we're really serious about this. And I did hear that they do appreciate that this could be the legacy of this particular location. So, maybe that's the next step, rather than just going to, okay, we'll give over 2 million today. See how that goes. We have a little bit of time, not a lot, but a little bit. And then we can readdress it. I think that for Mr. Huffer's sanity, we might want to readdress this when he's back. So maybe next week or the week after. But let's give Sheridan some time before the August 19th date to make sure that they know what's coming and what they should do. So,
Commissioner Kula, thank you, Commissioner. Thoughts?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I appreciate Commissioner Bershauer's persistence, or dedication to persistence with the can we get can Sheridan School District get an extension? I think that's forgive me, Superintendent, for thinking that's probably the most fiscally responsible thing on our end of things. I do, and I think this is the question that Commissioner Sterrett was asking, and that I think is still hanging out there a little bit, is both on the federal side and on the state side, whether we could extend essentially a loan, a bridge loan ourselves, that then gets reimbursed from the state, and from the American Rescue Plan dollars then get reimbursed. But I think that's a question that we're going to need to find out an answer to, not just right now. So in the meantime, I think that if my colleagues are, it sounds like, interested in some level of commitment, like, hey, will there, if we say we're putting in another 50,000, I think that's a prudent use of funds, considering that we have expressed a lot of support for this, and it ticks off a lot of the boxes for priorities that we've had. So my request would be go back to the purchaser, or sorry, the seller, and say, hey, extension until the money from the state comes through. Are you willing? And then does funding help with that? Does an additional promissory note?
Thank you, Commissioner. I'm wondering, because that's October that 1.9 comes in, which would pretty much cover for the most part, the purchase price, right? So if we don't ask them to wait until October, but we have to maybe ask them to wait until we've gotten our ducks in a row as far as what our priorities are for the ARPA economic impact dollars. We haven't done that yet. We might know, I'm hoping we'll know before October. And then we might be able to make another commitment, not saying it will be 2 million, but that 1.9 would go a long way to covering the purchase price, but not October. So maybe what we do is by then we'll know what we can do. Thank you for that, Commissioner. I appreciate that. Commissioner Bershauer, what are your thoughts at this point?
Thank you, Chair. Well, I guess my thoughts would be for us to put together some sort of formal letter of endorsement of the idea and the concept, and what we're willing to do or can do at this time. Hand that over to Superintendent Vickery, and then have her try and negotiate with them, I guess. And then if it's just a hard no, we can come back and discuss it. But I'm hoping that they're willing to see the vision as well. So,
Commissioner Bershauer, would you be willing to write that letter of support, and then maybe, I don't know, I know we've had this discussion before about getting those types of letters before the board for approval when there's some immediacy, so we don't wait till next week. But would the board be comfortable with Commissioner Bershauer writing a letter detailing what we've suggested today and running it by county council so that he can sort of finally say, yeah, this is the intent of the board, and then send it on to Superintendent Vickery sooner rather than next Thursday?
Chair, I'm comfortable with that as long as Commissioner Bershauer is up for that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bershauer.
thank you, Chair. And I just want to verify we're comfortable offering 50,000 to match what's already been put down. Is that correct?
At this point, it's just a letter of support, and then also for at some point, we don't have to put that in the letter. I would think we would just make provisions to get that in there, but Superintendent Vickery could convey that is something to show we're serious, and then let them know that there is money in the pipeline, and we're just looking at timing right now.
Okay. Christian, do you have suggestions?
My only thought is I'd want to obviously hear from Justin and Ken next week about how the timing is impacted by the guidance and the requirements that are attached to these funds, right? As long as we can do what is being considered in accordance with the requirements, then I would think we'll be in good shape. But would definitely want to make sure that those issues had been thought through, and that we were proposing to provide some funding in a way that kept us in compliance with the ARPA requirements.
Okay, that sounds good.
Because again, I think what we'd be looking at is still granting the money to the district to use for the ongoing acquisition efforts, if I'm right. So they would be there contracting with the purchaser. We would simply be providing some additional funds to help them pursue that acquisition. And we could write that into the grant conditions, presumably, even so much so. And again, this is something we can talk some more about, is we would provide this initial seed money, and then, this is again not something that I think we would have to do, but the board can talk about if the transaction. Well, never mind. We'd be providing this, if I'm understanding the conversation, as some additional money to be used as part of a non-refundable extension of additional earnest money. Is that right? So if the transaction didn't complete, we wouldn't necessarily be in a position to get that money back. that I'd want to also make sure is a justified and allowable use of the ARPA funds.
Right.
Thank you.
Okay.
So Superintendent, does that give you a little measure of what our options are at this point?
Yes, thank you, Chair Strader. I will definitely try to talk to our realtors and see what we can do. Thank you for your time again and your consideration of this project. I appreciate all of you. And it is a matter, as Commissioner Bershauer said, of who's going to jump first. And the consultants yesterday commented on that. And it is a little bit backwards than what happened in Salem. But I really do feel that whatever amount of the ARPA funds we can latch onto this project, we can leverage to get the rest and to get this off the ground. So thank you for your time and your consideration.
When you can also just tell them that government works at glacial speed. It's nothing like the private sector. So we're beholden to all of the red tape. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank
All
you.
right. And thanks, Commissioner Bershauer, for taking the lead on that. We'll move on to item 2, which is the discussion of a potential consideration of approval of a request to amend the second amended and restated solid waste disposal license agreement between Yamhill County and Riverbend Landfill Company, Inc., retroactive to July 1, 2021. And this was continued from last week. Joining us, we have, I believe, Jackie Lang, who is the Senior Public Affairs Director for Waste Management, and Mr. Tommy Brooks, Legal Counsel for Waste Management, and also a partner at Cable Houston. And joining us is Todd Sadlow, and also our Planning Director, Ken Friday. So thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. And maybe what we can do is start with, I don't know if this is a Christian component, but talk about the request for the amendment to the contract and what that means in terms of the county.
Yeah, sure. And Jackie or Tommy, feel free to jump in if I'm sort of not completely accurately reflecting what you had intended when you brought this amendment forward. But several weeks ago, we received a request from Waste Management to consider an amendment to the county's existing license agreement. That's the second amended and restated solid waste disposal license agreement that the county's had in place with Waste Management since 2012. And this amendment would make a number of material changes to that license agreement. Initially, it would extend the term of the agreement out an additional 20 years. The original license agreement had the existing license agreement had an initial term of 5 years, and then it would renew annually in successive one-year terms after that. So we're now in that 1 year annual extension period. And during that period, either party can terminate the agreement on 180 days notice. One of the proposed changes in this amendment would be to reinstitute a new 20-year term. And during that 20-year term, the county would no longer be in a position to terminate the contract on 180 days notice, but they have also asked that during that 20-year term that Riverbend Landfill Company, Waste Management, have a right to terminate by providing a 1-year advance notice. And maybe Jackie or Tommy can talk to a little bit about why that is something that they're looking for. Another significant change would be to reduce the minimum license fees payable to the county under the contract. Currently, that fee was set at a base rate of $20,000 a month, $240,000 a year, indexed each year based on the CPI. So I may not have the numbers exactly correct, but I believe last year, or perhaps even this current year, it's about $271,000. They've asked that basically the minimum license fee payment would be reduced from $271,000 to $50,000 a year. That fee at the moment is also indexed to increase annually by the CPI. They've asked that remain a flat 50,000 for the duration of the term, and they can probably speak to more directly why they're asking for that change and why that's important. Trying to think what the other material changes were. Yeah, I think that's about it. And again, there may be some other elements that either Tommy or Jackie would like to talk about. So it is an amendment to our existing license agreement. It's not a new agreement. So yeah, Tommy, Jackie.
Thank you for that. Jackie, did you want to start, or perhaps Mr. Brooks?
I will. Thank you, Chair Starrett, and good morning, Commissioner Kula, Commissioner Berschauer. Yamhill County's partnership with Riverbend has spanned 30 years. We've worked hard over the years to make it a win-win in a number of different respects. The reality at this time is that Yamhill County's relationship with Riverbend is going to change fundamentally. And this is going to be the state of the relationship for some time because of new limitations at the site. The old licensing agreement doesn't work anymore. It doesn't fit because it was driven by MSW volumes. When it was working well, it was a beautiful win-win because Yamhill County was benefiting with more than $1 million a year, 25 jobs at Riverbend and all the green technology. We're at a different point now because our expansion has been delayed. We're going to be bringing in low levels of waste, prioritizing soils, and metering in some MSW over the years as we build out the outer slopes and advance the final decisions about what will happen with the Riverbend property ultimately. So the proposed amendment does a couple important things for the county. It's a reliable revenue stream for the county. It's not the $1 million because that would come when we're operating at full capacity at some point in the future, hopefully, but it would be a reliable payment for the county for years to come. There's the green technology benefit. I'd be happy to speak to this more specifically if we have time. Right now, that is the renewable energy that we're generating as part of our partnership with McMinnville Water and Light. And that's been an important, innovative technology for waste management and for Yamhill County. And finally, the bigger economic benefits. You know, we used to employ 25 people, living wage jobs, full-time jobs with generous benefits and a lot of training and career planning. We're down to 5 employees at this point as we operate at this very low level. The other opportunity for the future is with local investment. You know, when we were planning for our expansion, we were investing millions of dollars a year. In 2013, 2014 alone, we invested $18 million in the site. And much of that money was spent with local vendors. So those are dollars that were used again and again in the local economy. A bigger economic footprint, certainly than just the 25 jobs. And Chair Starrett, let me know if there's time for me to speak more directly to the green technology benefits.
Go ahead and do that. I know, I'm assuming all the commissioners have had the opportunity to tour the landfill and to see those various, it's been years, but those various technologies and the infrastructure. Commissioner Berschauer, I'm not sure if you have. You have, okay. Maybe just a real brief overview of the technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. 3 important environmental benefits. Number 1, renewable energy. So we're still using landfill gas to generate renewable energy for McMinnville Water and Light. We invested $10 million to build that plant in 2010. We generate 4.5 megawatts of electricity, and that's used to power 2,500 local homes, or it's the equivalent of what could be used to power homes. It's actually used for homes and businesses by McMinnville Water and Light customers. One important aspect of that is that it satisfies the state requirement for a renewable energy portfolio standard for McMinnville Water and Light. And it was also an important first for Yamhill County. You told us over the years that you wanted innovation and green technology. This is a concrete example of what a company like Waste Management does in a community like Yamhill County. And we've talked with the commissioners about green technologies for the future. There are other options over time. The second piece of this is waste reduction and recycling. You told us, and people in the community told us, that you wanted better recycling programs. And we've been able to bring that to the county. In 2015, we built a $1 million recycling center. And we know that we've reduced waste since the operation of the recycling center, because all the data tells us when you make recycling easy and convenient, people recycle more. And we've had recycling customers at that facility every day, recycling materials since we opened. We've worked hard to make it easy and convenient. We even had our staff person there, our attendant had gone through the Yamhill County Master Recyclers Program. So he was there to coach and advise about how to waste less and recycle more.
Commissioners, questions at this point for Ms. Lang? Commissioner Kula.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ms. Lang. I wanted to go back to there are other options over time. I'd love to hear more about that. I know that I don't mean to say you. I think that Councilor Brooks actually, in his application on behalf of Waste Management in the fall, had mentioned the green technologies were in the future. So I actually had never heard you describe the methane burner as being part of the green technology portfolio. But I'm curious to hear what you mean by that in the future, or over time, I believe is what you said.
Mm-hmm. We're using landfill gas to generate renewable energy right now, and we will continue to do that in the future. If Riverbend continues to operate, then that timeline extends. So that's more renewable energy for a longer period of time. The earlier expansion package approved by the county also included a specific green technology component. And Waste Management agreed to that as part of our company commitment to extract value from waste. No company in North America is investing in and incubating in green technologies to the extent that Waste Management is. We didn't commit to a specific technology to the county at that time because that doesn't make sense. We want as much time for these technologies to develop as possible. When the time is right, we'll come to the county and bring your options to the table. The question will be, what type of innovative technology makes sense for Yamhill County at that time?
So I just want to, as a follow-up, Chair, if I don't mind. So what you said was that there are other options for green technology available over time. And I just want to hear what some of those are. That's all. I'm just asking for specifics. And I've never heard them, so that's why I'm asking that.
So I will offer concrete examples from relationships that we've had in the past. Waste Management provided some expertise and a location for a plasma gasification technology to develop in Oregon. We helped incubate that technology. The question was whether or not the energy created from garbage could be used for the high-tech sector, could be used to help Intel make chips. Another example was with Agilix, the plastics to oil technology. We partnered with Agilix for a number of years to help them advance their technology. Those are a couple examples.
Okay, so so that would be with material that's on site, or would that be with material that you're bringing into the location?
It would all depend.
Okay, what would it? Are you proposing to use green technology to reduce the size of the garbage pile, or are you proposing to use green technologies to extract energy from things that you're bringing in? I just want to know. That's all.
Thank you. I understand the question now. Yes, the vision has always been to use green technologies as an alternative to the landfill, to use materials for beneficial purposes rather than putting the material in the landfill. Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. That's super helpful. So you really don't need an expansion of the landfill then in order to achieve that, do you? You can just have probably some kind of site design review for that particular technology. That's cool.
Well, you need contracts with municipalities and companies who want to bring their material to you. And the reality, as good as these technologies are, they're still waste. So even the best green technologies that are operating right now in different parts of the country, there's still some residual waste. A landfill is still part of that solution.
Thank you. It looks like Mr. Brooks wants to weigh in. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair and Commissioners. I think one of the things I want to make sure we keep in mind here is that we are talking about two different things. There's what Jackie was mentioning earlier is the green tech that's been implemented already, which is really around the landfill gas to energy. The green technology, kind of capital G, capital T, that was part of the land use decision years ago. I guess it's been about 9 years now, where it was actually a condition of approval. And Commissioner Kula, if you look at that decision, you can actually see the county had imposed sort of the types of green technology that would be used. So it mentions advanced thermal recycling, gasification, pyrolysis. All of that was pretty well developed in that record. All of those are not in lieu of disposal. They are part of disposal. So what Jackie referred to was residual. If there's no waste stream coming in to feed that technology, the technology doesn't exist. So they go hand in hand, and it's not expansion or green tech, it's expansion and green tech. And that was something that the Board of Commissioners was really adamant about during that land use process. And we worked pretty closely with them to develop something that worked for the county and for us.
Thank you, Commissioner Kula.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thank you for weighing in. I appreciate that. I didn't see any mentions of that beyond green technology in the most recent application that came to us. So, that's the one I have the most familiarity with, Councilor Brooks. But along those lines, then, I wonder, my understanding based upon my previous conversation with Ms. Lang, and this is directed at Mr. Brooks, is if Riverbend is very close to its 5-year capacity number, which is what I inferred or I was told by Ms. Lang, which would trigger that irreversible closure period, and you're currently proposing like an interim. I wonder, do you know, Mr. Brooks, how if you continue to accept garbage at the same rate you have been, which is fairly low prior to the end of June, what percentage of the garbage that's accepted could go to advanced pyrolysis, which is a wonderful way to talk about burning that makes something useful in the end. What percentage would go to pyrolysis and what would go residual and into the landfill? And then how much time could you expand your time period at that same rate rather than the 5-year capacity? Does that make sense? I'm looking at a curve here, and you could potentially burn this stuff. I just don't know why we're not doing advanced technology now.
Yeah, the question makes sense. I don't have off the top of my head a number of sort of what the percentages are. I think each of those technologies is different among each other, and even within it, you might have one facility, that it burns more efficiently than like the Brooks facility does now. So I just, that analysis has to be done, and that analysis will be done based on a waste stream also that's coming in. And that's why all of that is related to not the discussion today about the license agreement for the existing facility, but all of that is keyed toward a future expansion, and we would go through that analysis. It does affect, obviously, the time frame. So the less you're disposing, the more airspace you have. But again, those things kind of go hand in hand. And ultimately, DEQ will sort of look at and determine, what's the available capacity here in the space in your operation plan. And right now, they've always done that just with disposal being the only option. And if this were to happen in the future, which again, we're talking about expansion, but today is about the existing facility, they would go through that analysis too and say, okay, disposal is not the only option, it's disposal and the green tech. So that analysis really just needs to be done.
Thank you. Commissioner Kula.
Thank you, Chair. I have a series of questions for Mr. Brooks, but I wanted to hold off since I've monopolized some of our time now and offer back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. One of the things I want to do is make sure that we're addressing what is before us today, which is not expansion, but basically the license agreement. And I know that there are implications and that they do go hand in hand to some degree, but I just want to make sure that we're not here to argue the expansion of the landfill. I think that has been decided to some degree. But in any event, Commissioner Bershauer, did you have anything you wanted to ask, or perhaps either of Ms. Lang or Mr. Brooks?
Thank you, Chair. I think Christian had a comment he wanted to make. He put his hand up briefly. I'll let you go.
Yeah, I wanted to point out there is one other significant requested change here, which is revising section 2 and section 6.4 of the license agreement to allow Waste Management in its sole discretion to determine whether or not to accept or deny acceptance of solid waste. There are in the existing agreement a couple of limited conditions under which they can choose not to accept solid waste, but this amendment would change that to allow them to not accept solid waste at their sole discretion. And that, I think, goes sort of hand in hand with what they've been explaining to you in terms of their immediate and longer term plans for the facility. So I had not mentioned that before. I wanted to make sure to mention that so you could consider
Thank
that.
you. Commissioner Bershauer, thank you. Commissioner Bershauer, did you have anything as a follow-up?
Thank you, Chair. And obviously my colleagues have had a much longer history with this particular project than I have. So just anecdotally, some of the things we've seen in the past month or so when River been closed, right? I have discovered through speaking with people and seeing comments online and so on and so forth, that there's a significant number of people in our county who did rely on this particular site for recycling, for management of their garbage. I know several folks in Sheridan particularly who cannot afford a normal garbage service, so they were managing their own waste in a way that made sense for them financially, and using Riverbend. The number of homes that you power or help to power and businesses for Mac Water and Light is significant to me because those are some of the lowest rates in our county. I don't have the privilege of having Mac Water and Light rates, and a lot of people covet those. And that goes directly back to the ability to be able to provide that energy. So just anecdotally, I've noticed there's clearly a segment of our county that does not want expansion, and that's been very clear. There's also a significant number of people who do rely on this particular site, not only for affordable energy, but for managing their own household budget as well. So I guess my concern, you're a business, and I trust that you're going to make decisions for your business that are best for you. My concern is sort of, how do we, if we are to expand a contract, what does that actually mean to the public? If we say, well, they'll be accepting garbage, randomly, I'm not really sure that's a reliable message. So maybe some clarity on that. But in terms of getting to the point where you don't reach this threshold of having an irrevocable closure process, I would trust that you're going to do what you need to do to stay out of that. But I'm sort of unclear as to what that means to the public. So what does my decision mean in terms of we sign this extension, regardless of whatever the dollar amount is, but we sign this extension, what does that actually mean? So those are my comments.
Jackie, or is this a Tommy Brooks question?
I'll start, and Tommy, you can help me afterwards. Though the customers that you're talking about, the residents and the small businesses, particularly on the west side of the county, that's been a really important part of our customer base. And we've worked really hard to take care of that group. We heard a lot from them when we were asking the question, what's missing in the county in terms of recycling services? And what do you need to be more sustainable at your business and in the schools and in your homes? So we know those people well, and they visit the site often, or they did until we were no longer accepting that material. So we feel really bad about that. That's not the outcome we were looking for. That's why we initiated the expansion. And unfortunately, there are limitations now that are beyond our control because of the delays with the expansion. I would hope, Commissioner Bershauer, that you would tell those folks that in the foreseeable future, unfortunately, this Riverbend is not going to be available, and the county is interested in sustaining that relationship. We've approved an amended licensing agreement to make sure that we have options for the future. So long term, there will be an opportunity to discuss how this will work, and for you as citizens to make your voices heard. Tommy, anything to add?
Oh, may I have a follow-up to that? If Commissioner Bershauer is, because I wanted to ask a question that's related to that one.
Oh, look, I think if Commissioner Bershauer doesn't have anything, that Mr. Brooks might want to jump in, and then we can address that. Thank you. Commissioner Bershauer?
I don't have anything to add. I think
Okay.
Jackie said that spot on, and so maybe Commissioner Kula's follow-up will clarify it.
Thank you. So practically, I understand that. Practically speaking, though, there will be times when it's open for whatever amount of garbage or waste or recycling that you find you have room for. And I don't know all the fancy terms, so bear with me. But so how is that going to be communicated? Is that just sort of, we will, reach out to some of our former clients and let them know there's space? How do you guys propose doing that? And also, how do you propose communicating that to the county? Because that's something that we would need to know about on a regular basis if that's happening.
Our thinking at this point is that we don't want to offer the garbage space to the community, because just to your point, it would be unreliable. I think people would be frustrated and disappointed. It would be hard to predict. And we don't want people holding garbage at their business or their home. We want that material safely managed. So our thinking at this point is that we'll do that internally. We do the collection for the county on the east side of the county, and for the communities of Newburgh and Dundee, we would probably just bring in some of that material to put at Riverbend. I can't speak exactly to that, but that's our thinking. And then how would we report to the county? We do this now, and we will continue to do so. Provide, I think it's a quarterly, I don't think it's monthly, I think it's a quarterly report to the county on volumes that have come in. And that's how the funding works too. We report volumes, and then we provide the funding that goes with it. If the volumes are if they're below the minimum, then the payment for the full year would be $50,000. If they're above the minimum, because we took in soils from a construction project along I-5, if they go above the minimum, then you're going to be paid the per ton fee, and that report would include the amount, the money and the amount of soil that came in, along with any solid waste or municipal solid waste that came in that period.
Thank you. Commissioner Kula?
Yes, thank you, Chair. And thank you, Ms. Lang, for trying to address that as best you can. I think that Commissioner Bershauer, my understanding as a follow-up to Commissioner Bershauer's second point about how would we know, I think perhaps getting to the core of it is so that we could communicate to the public when it's available. But if it's not open at all for public drop off, then that's a separate issue. I did want to note that when Ms. Lang reached out to me a couple weeks ago, my ask was that if we were to even consider a reduction from $240,000 a year as the base fee to $50,000 a year, that the public drive-in and drop-off continue to remain open. So that was my ask of her, and that it be allowed at a reduced cost, so that we recognize that community members benefit at least from this, and not just the county's revenue. Or the county's revenue decreases. So why don't we look at some way of the community benefiting from it? So that was something I requested of Ms. Lang, and she indicated she can indicate her answer now, but it was no to me. The second part of that is that I believe that there is drop-off service available at Recology in McMinnville. Is that not correct?
Of course.
Okay. I just think it's important for you to mention that, since you're the garbage person. Do you want to address that though, Ms. Lang? Or Mr. Brooks, the proposal that I floated to allow customers from the public, the community, to come in just on an ongoing basis, because presumably it's a very small amount of garbage, especially household.
It can be. It's also a steady stream of household waste, and it's also small businesses. A lot of that is commingled. It's mixed together. And my answer to you at that time, and my answer to Commissioner Berschauer today, is that we wish we could. That's why we tried to expand the landfill. We knew capacity was limited, and at this time, the limitations are such that we cannot accept material on a regular basis from the community. Recology does have a full service transfer station right in McMinnville. So that's 3 miles down the road, Commissioner Berschauer. So that would be another piece of information that would be helpful for folks in Amity and Sheridan and Willamina. Drive 3 more miles and there is a full service transfer station and recycling drop-off center.
I have a question, Ms. Lang. When we look at the request for the reduction in what has been paid, the $240 a year, and the $50,000, which is proposed now, that is based on the fact that you are not receiving the volume received before. Is that what part of the justification is that it's a business decision, in terms of, it's sort of like a restaurant now has to charge more because food costs more and labor costs more, so you have to increase the cost on the menu. It would be a business decision because you're not bringing in the volume to justify that tonnage or that fee then goes to the county. Is that too simplistic?
No, it's right on. That's exactly it. When a landfill or any business is operating at full capacity, you have full employment, you have strong revenues, you're looking to the future. That's where we were when we wrote this existing licensing agreement. We're at a different point now. We're taking in very low levels. We have a minimal staff, and we're going to focus, we need to focus on bringing in the soils to build out the structure of the site, the slope structure.
Thank you. Mr. Brooks.
Yeah, I'd like to add one point, because I think it answers kind of both of those questions about the public drop-off and the amount of the license fee. And this gets back to Jackie's original comments about the relationship is different. The primary source of waste coming into the site is just different. When the landfill is at full operation, I bet you they could have predicted almost on a daily basis a precise tonnage that was coming in. With the switch to a different kind of primary waste stream, that's just not possible. I always describe it as kind of lumpy. It kind of comes in bits and pieces. And so waste management has to be very deliberate about what they take in, because where they put it is so limited. And they've got to be very strategic about being able to put the waste that's shaped like this over here and the waste that's shaped like that over there. And that gets to the public drop-off piece, because that's an unpredictable stream. And the worst case scenario would be someone drops off waste and it can't be put anywhere and it's just sitting there. That's not responsible management of it. Or like Jackie said, we tell them they have to hold on to it for a little while. That's not good. And so what we need to do is match up the reality with what the predictability and the type of the waste stream is going to be. And then that's then what leads to the license fee amount. It was just a different context when it was, come one, come all, we can take anything you can bring to us. That works, differently economically than us having to go out and find waste or receive it in these lumpy kind of deliveries. So it's just a new context. It's not the public, open landfill anymore.
Thank you. Commissioner Kula.
Thank you. If I may, Chair, a follow-up to that, to your question, your initial question on this. I think that it's for either Ms. Lang or Mr. Brooks, is you're bringing to us your business need, and since we represent the county, and we also, the things that we do are in the benefit of county residents. I'm curious about how you would present this, how you would pitch this as being good for county residents, this reduction in the base fee from 240,000 to 50,000, and the no longer accepting the garbage.
Well, Commissioner, if you're looking at the finances exclusively, if you stick with this old outdated agreement, there will be next to no payment for the county. What we're offering is an amended agreement that matches the realities and guarantees at least a $50,000 payment a year. So in a way, it's 50,000 or nothing. We're not bringing in the MSW anymore. So the formula in this old agreement is obsolete.
But I'm sorry, I'm confused then. Isn't 240,000 the base amount, regardless of how much garbage you bring in? Or, I mean, sorry, solid waste.
It's the base amount in this existing agreement. And that's no longer feasible given the nature of the operations.
But you said it would go to zero if we kept the old contract, but this old licensing agreement, sorry, the one that you're proposing to amend has a base of 240,000 no matter how much you bring in. And so isn't 50,000 lower than 240,000? And wouldn't we continue to get 240,000 if we extended this licensing agreement? Or are you proposing to not extend the licensing agreement?
I'm saying we're working hard to make this a win-win, for a win for the county with a reliable revenue stream and opportunities for the future, and a win for Waste Management in that we continue to operate over several years at a very low level until we can navigate the next steps for Riverbend. That's the best proposal that we can offer at this time.
Thank you. I'm wondering if, typically we don't negotiate contracts as a board in public. I'm wondering at this point if the board there would be consensus for staff to work with Waste Management for a, just to, as I like to say, everything's negotiable. The $50,000 seems low. The 20 years to me is a big ask. I'm wondering if, given, because the things to me that are really the hook are the green energy, the MAC Water and Light. I have PGE and I can tell you what my electric rates are compared to MAC Water and Light. And I'm looking at $18 million worth of infrastructure and would hate to see that be, that be jettisoned. So while this is not a debate on the expansion or no expansion, I'm wondering if we could direct staff to work with Waste Management and say, hey, can we sharpen our pencils so that the county winds up with more revenue, and perhaps the duration of the contract, you're asking for 20 years, maybe there can be some negotiation there. I just wouldn't be prepared to say, thumbs up, thumbs down on what's been proposed. Is that something that, Christian, that would be a good next step? Or commissioners, do you see that as a potential next step?
Chair, I think that's a reasonable next step. I did want to, I'm happy to communicate with Christian about some of the language concerns in the amendment as well. And I think you've expressed some of your concerns too. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that would be, advisable. Commissioner Bershauer, is that something you would like to see?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I think that's a good next step. I do think, though, that the public that's watching right now is probably wondering, okay, we're going from $250,000 to 50. How does that impact my county services? So maybe somebody can speak to that a little bit as to how we might absorb that. Anybody?
Well, I'd say that Commissioner Bershauer, that my position would be that we keep it at the existing, but I know that Director Friday and Ken Huffer have been talking about that extensively.
Okay.
Yes, I was going to maybe jump in. I don't know if Justin or Christian have something else to add, but the money from Riverbend helps to pay for our roadside garbage collection, the post-closure monitoring at the closed Newburgh and Whiteson landfills, as well as a twice yearly household hazardous waste collection event. Now those, I'm not saying those would go away because we have set aside some funds in this eventuality that, that this day might have come so that that we have this different relationship. But over time it will lead to choices as to, are we going to have 2 household hazardous waste collection events, or will we try to find other ways to fund our solid waste program? So immediately, I don't think there would be any change. We have sufficient funds in the solid waste department for the next several years. For the next year or so. And but over time, this could have a significant impact.
I'm just wondering, it's like I'm kind of feeling like, since I've been part of this discussion over the years, it's like we want to have it both ways. We want the landfill to close, and yet we want the benefits that the landfill provides to the county. And I don't think we can have it both ways. Jackie?
The programs that Ken Friday just talked about are so important. And that's why our partnership was a win-win for a long time, with more than $1 million coming from Riverbend to the county. Those programs were well funded, and there were funds for other things. So if you're really worried about the funding, help us get the expansion. That's the best long-term plan when you're looking at the money part of it.
Okay, Commissioner Kula?
Oh, I think that you invited Christian, and so I just want to make sure that he gets that invite too. But if we want to talk about expansion, I'm happy to talk about that too. So, but let's go over to Christian.
Yeah, we're not here to talk about expansion, but let's be clear that if that there's a reason for this ask. Obviously, things have changed out there, and if they're going to change. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. So, Christian, did you want to? No.
I think Ken Friday addressed it, unless Justin has anything he wants to add in terms of what impact this change would have on existing county services. I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay. And so if there's nothing at this time, I'm just looking for consensus from the board that whatever concerns you have regarding what's been requested for this contract amendment, share those with county council and maybe run them through Ken Friday and see what we come up with, and then come back. Would next week work for us to be able to come back with a final something to discuss for the board to actually thumbs up or thumbs down?
We can certainly pursue that, and if we're not ready to discuss a revised amendment at that point, we could at least provide the board with an update and give you a sense of what the timing is looking like.
Okay, Commissioner Kula, does that sound fair?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure you knew that I thought that was a good both timeline and suggestion for moving forward. And I'll present my proposal to Christian for incorporation.
Thank you. Commissioner Bershauer, does that work?
Yes, that works. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Ms. Lang, Mr. Brooks, so if you were to work with County Council and Ken Friday to come up with, you know, in what you do with negotiations regarding contracts that we typically don't do in a public forum, I think then we can come back with the specifics of that and then continue a discussion. Does that work for everybody? Okay.
That sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you for your time today. Thank you, Mr. Friday and Mr. Brooks and Ms. Lang. We appreciate you being part of this discussion. Thank you. We'll hopefully discuss this next week.
Thank you, Chair Starrett. Thank you, Commissioner Kula, Commissioner Bershauer.
Thank you for answering questions. Appreciate it.
Thank you. We'll move on to department updates. We have none. We have a consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. On to item H, which is old business. H1, consideration of approval of the adoption of written findings and conditions of ordinance 915 and board order in the amount of upholding the planning director's approval of docket PAZ-01-21, which is a comprehensive plan amendment from very low density residential to industrial and a zone change from VLDR 2.5 very low density residential to LI light industrial. The applicant, Thomas Henry Stewart, tax lot 3325 BD-200, and the location is 209 Highway 99, Dundee, and that is continued from July 15th. And Mr. Sadlow has presented those to us. We've had an opportunity to look at those. Do we have a motion to approve the findings?
And Chair, I know I presented some questions last week, and it appears that at least some representatives of Mr. Stewart are available. I don't know if we want to entertain them with or invite them on for any of those questions, but I'm also happy to just vote on this. So
okay, let's do that. If there's nothing else for consideration, I would just entertain a motion.
So moved.
Motion to approve item H1. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion passes. On to item H2, consideration of approval of the adoption of written findings and conditions in the matter of upholding the planning director's approval of docket SDR 20-20/M-01-20, a site design review for the construction and operation of a new wireless communications facility consisting of a 100-foot monopole tower, 104 feet including the antennas, along with associated equipment, cabinets, emergency diesel generator, and cabling. The applicant is Christine Bradford, representing ACOM Consulting for Verizon Wireless. The appellant is the City of McMinnville, tax lot 419-02600, location 551 Hill Road South, McMinnville. This was continued from July 1st. Todd?
Yes, Madam Chair, these are the same findings. They have not been changed, and the same board order that you were presented a draft of on Monday.
Thank you very much for putting those together. Motion to, I will consider a motion to approve the adoption written of the findings and conditions.
I move that we approve item H2.
We have a motion. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. On to other business, and this is add-ons and consent items. The consideration of approval to appoint Philip Higgins to the Road Improvement Advisory Committee, RIAC, for a 3-year term to expire on July 22nd, 2024. Commissioner Kula, did you want to bring this to us?
certainly, and at your request, the position was reopened for the length of time that was presented or requested. The Road Improvement Advisory Committee met, considered, and reiterated their support through a motion and a vote to appoint or to recommend appointment of Philip Higgins to the Road Improvement Advisory Committee.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, at this point, I would not be inclined to support this application. I do have some concerns. I do appreciate and respect RIAC, but I think that in light of what a public records request has shown, they're available on our website. Those have brought significant concerns to my attention, so I would not be inclined to approve this application.
And I think that the Road Improvement Advisory Committee feels like he would be a good addition to their advisory committee.
I appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm going to call the question. So the motion before us is to consider approval for the appointment. Is there further discussion?
Oh, Chair, I'm not sure. Did you move that we approve?
No,
'Cause I don't
asking
think
for a
we had a
motion.
motion yet.
Motion to approve.
I move that we approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve item H1. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Aye. The motion fails. On to item I2, consideration of approval of grant agreement 33452 between Yamhill County and the state of Oregon for the replacement of the Deer Creek Park Road Bridge number 11501 in the amount of $1,247,600, effective upon execution with a maximum duration of 10 years. Are there discussions? Questions?
Chair, this is this is a very exciting that we continue to move forward with this, having the folks at ODOT cover this cost. We've worked with them for a long time, our Public Works has, and it's a long overdue project. The challenging thing, and to the public, it's a situation where there's only one house that's served by this road, but Deer Creek Park is also served by this road. And it's very important for people to be able to get to use this gem of one of the gems of our park system.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming, so I appreciate that. Commissioner Kula, do you want to move approval?
I move approval of, I need to, my item, sorry, item I2.
Thank you. We have a motion to approve. Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
may I interrupt? I
Yes.
believe that you missed H1. It's an ordinance.
No.
The paving company.
No, you were AWOL.
We approved it.
We approved it.
I will swear that I uphold Chair Starrett's comment.
There's no way. You just did the wireless communication facility.
No, you were AWOL when we did it. I was wondering where you were. I was going to
Sitting right here. You need to read it. You need to read it by title only twice. It's an ordinance.
Well, we read the item and we read the full item on the agenda.
Do we need to do more, Todd? Is that what you're saying?
I will say that I was distracting Todd with a phone call, and Todd, they did vote on it.
Wow.
My apologies to you, Todd.
So it's Ken's fault.
But do we have to read it again?
Do you want us to read it just to make you feel better?
Yes, you do. It needs to be read twice by title only. It is an ordinance.
Okay, so
Madam Chair, would I have permission to read it
yes.
once by
Would
title
you?
only if there's no objection?
No, would you please? Because then you would feel more invested in this item.
Sorry, Todd.
This is in the matter of a comprehensive plan amendment from very low density residential to industrial and a zone change from VLDR 2.5 very low density residential to LI light industrial. Planning docket PAZ-01-21, tax slot 3325BD-200, applicant Thomas Henry Stewart, and declaring an emergency. It's ordinance 915.
Thank you. So I read it once and you read it once. Does that count as twice?
I would just prefer that we just do this right, if you don't mind.
Okay, go ahead.
I will read it again by title only. And again, this is partly because the title changed since the draft I gave you on Monday, and I eliminated the limited use overlay after a discussion with the applicant and planning staff. This is in the matter of a comprehensive plan amendment from very low density residential to industrial and a zone change from VLDR 2.5 very low density residential to light industrial, planning docket PAZ 01 21, tax lap 3325 BD 200, applicant Thomas Henry Stewart, and declaring an emergency, and it's ordinance 915. And I would respectfully request that you vote on it once again to make this clear.
Yes. So do we have a motion to approve item H1?
Chair, I will move again to approve H1.
Thank you. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
The motion passes again. Thank you, Todd.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
That was a first. No, thank you. So where are we now? We are back to item I3, other business. Is that right? Item I3, consideration of extending the COVID-19 paid administrative leave policy board order 20-91 retroactive to July 15th, 2021 through August 14th, 2021. Justin, did you want to comment on this, or do you feel that perhaps, and even Christian, that we've had enough discussions amongst the commissioners to explain this?
I don't mind making a comment on it.
Go ahead.
So we hadn't seen COVID cases appear in our workforce for a period of time, but recently there was a case that appeared in one of our departments, and in working under the guidance of public health and health providers, we're quarantining several employees just out of an abundance of caution and performing some contact tracing. So it appears that there is an immediate need to reinstitute the admin leave policy for at least a brief period of time while this is dealt with. So thank you for your consideration on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Kula.
I just want to say thank you. This issue was presented to me as an urgent matter, and I'm really glad to see this as kind of a solution. So thank you.
Thank you. I know Christian's been working on this as well, so we appreciate it. So do we have a motion to approve item I3?
I move that we approve item I3. Or sorry, it's item I4, correct?
I have 3. Do I have an old version of an agenda?
I have 3.
Okay.
I move that we approve item I3.
Okay. So move. I mean, yeah, you know what I mean. We have a motion to approve. Is there further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. On to item I4. The consideration of acceptance of a stormwater easement from Fox Farm Resort to satisfy a condition of approval in planning dockets SDR 13-19 and SDR 7-20. Ken, did you want to weigh in on this, or Commissioner, or Todd?
Yes, Madam Chair, Commissioners. Both of these items have to do with Fox Farm Resort, which is just east of the city of Dundee. And as part of that approval, we found out that we had a stormwater draining from Fox Farm Road and from above it through a culvert needed to continue to go through the site, and that drainage was disrupted by a prior owner of the property. And the new owners agreed as part of their approval to provide the stormwater easement through the property, and that's what this does. And the right-of-way was road improvements that were made by the applicant to Fox Farm Road. The intersection has been modified to more easily accommodate longer vehicles or RVs or camper trailers. And so that's the conveyance of that wedge of land on the corner there. So.
Thank you for
and
that.
You're the only reason Christian asked me why these are on the agenda, and it's because you do have to accept any donation of land for public use. And if it were done on a subdivision or a partition plat, you would be signing the Mylar on that, but we don't have something like that in this case. So we need to get the approval of the board before you can then sign the document for recording, which you will hopefully do today after these votes.
Thank you. We'll make sure that we do. Commissioners, any questions or a motion to approve?
No, Chair. I'm really glad that we figured this one out, and that the owner of the property was willing and able to work with us on continuing that drainage.
Thank you. Would you like to make a motion to approve?
I move that we approve
I4.
item I4.
Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. On to item I5, consideration of acceptance of the right-of-way deed from Fox Farm Resort to satisfy the condition of approval in planning dockets SDR 1319 and SDR-07-20. And are there further questions or further clarification needed from Todd? If there are none,
I would move approval of item I5.
Motion to approve. Further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes. I'm going to call it item I6, and that's the approval of the fair request from the fairgrounds manager for the funds for 2021 county fair. Justin, do you want to jump in and explain that, typically how we do it and why this is in a separate invoice for the $127,850?
Yeah, historically, it just all comes at once, the entire expense request for all of the fair activities. And for whatever reason, there's not really a good reason for them breaking it up. I think it was just more of a timing issue. So there's just an immediate need for them to pay the entertainers that'll be appearing at the fair. That's the primary reason that it was brought up, and so it's up to you for consideration here.
We got to get them paid, or we're going to have a lot of unhappy entertainers and a lot of unhappy fairgoers.
Oh yeah.
Do we have a motion to approve the invoice from the fair manager for $127,850 for the entertainment for the 2020? I saw Commissioner Kula going like this, and I was like,
I was trying to do the, I'm sorry, Chair. I was trying to do the, well, while you were reading, like, hey, Commissioner Berschauer, wink, wink, do you want to be the one to make this motion?
Oh, yes, I will.
oh, I'm sorry. I apologize for that.
I move that we pay this invoice early. And Gary actually called me and warned me that it was coming like this. So yes, we need to get the musicians paid. And if you've seen the lineup, it looks very, very awesome. So I can't wait.
They don't play for tips.
That's right.
Thank you. Okay, so we have a motion to approve item I6. Further discussion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes and the entertainers get paid. We have no public hearings. Do we have any announcements?
Chair, I just have one in that I promised you last week that I'd be meeting with some other local representatives of the bypass or the Parkway Committee to talk about local funding options. And so we met with Councilor Harvey from the Tribal Council, with Mayor Hill from McMinnville, and Mayor Rogers from Newburgh, and then Dave Hageberg. And we went through some of the options that are possible in order to make sure that we have a significant local source of funding, but still to make sure that ODOT is the one who puts in the money kind of all along the way and recognizes that there was savings from the first phase. And so what I would ask of you at this point, commissioners, is that we allow or we invite Chair Hageberg of the Parkway to do a presentation of the options. Because this is important for all, this is something that we all need to consider the options and look at what we have available and look at what the state has proposed. Does that sound good, Chair?
Yeah, Commissioner
Okay, great.
Berschauer, look like you were, okay. All right.
Okay, I think it would have to, I'm guessing it would come as a work session.
Okay, and then we can work with Ken to find a time to get that on the agenda. If it's not time sensitive, I know there are a couple of things we need to, but we can put it in. We've got a bunch we never really got to that are, you know, we've had the tyranny of the urgent, and that's been happening a lot. So yeah, that would be great. And would be nice to see Mr. Hageberg again as well.
Great.
Anything
Okay.
else?
No, I will convey that to him, and I'll connect him with Ken.
Okay, great. And I just want to add that there is some good news. If you remember the single family 3-bedroom home in Lafayette, that was a county tax foreclosed property, and then the housing authority did a rehab on it, and it is absolutely beautiful. And the longtime participant of the housing authority and the Affordable Housing Coalition was the purchaser of that home. But what's interesting is that this person was able to get their finances in order, go through a variety of the different programs and family self-sufficiency programs to increase their credit score, their income, pay off debts, and get the down payment. So this is one of those situations where this home, which was sitting there a mess, is now a beautiful home to someone who's also been completely rehabilitated in terms of financing. So I love to hear those stories. And also there are 2 proposals for the duplex, the Common Wall property, which was another of the foreclosed properties in Lafayette, and they're waiting on a 3rd. So these properties are getting back on the tax rolls, and it's really good news. And the housing authority folks have, and Affordable Housing Coalition have been wonderful in this regard. So that's what I have. Anybody else? Okay, well, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I'm looking at Christian now, and I'm just, we're not gonna even go there on the soccer unless it's urgent.
The only thing I was going to say, it's not actually soccer related, but I was just going to comment, if you hadn't approved that invoice for the fair, you might have had a not so quiet riot. But get it?
Ooh,
Yeah,
ooh, that was a dad joke. You know that? That was like a dad joke.
Ken Friday would be proud.
Friday, yeah, exactly.
Ken Friday would be proud. But good one,
That's the only
Christian.
comment I had, sorry.
No, that was good. That was a great way to take us out. So thank you. Well, I also want to thank Justin for our second in command, because this is kind of fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a blast.
And I want to thank Ken Friday and Todd Sadlow for being with us part of the time anyway. I'm going to go over and give him a hard time. And also Carolina, appreciate the work getting those comments to us, and Carrie Hinton and Counselor Christian and everybody else. So thank you very much. We'll go ahead and adjourn, and we'll see you on Thursday.
Stay safe out there. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.